In 2007, he was Minister of Tourism and Communication of Burkina Faso. He was educated at the University of Ouagadougou, the University of Bordeaux 2 and 3, the Institut Français de Presse, and the University of Paris 2, and the University of Paris 3, Sorbonne Nouvelle. He's going to talk to us today about his experience and his work as the ambassador of the observer of Francophonie at the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me Ambassador Fillippe Savadogo.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to say welcome to our ambassador of Burkina Faso in Germany, Mrs. Odile. She was Minister of Education for 7 years in Burkina, and I think it is a really example of gender in Africa. I just also want to thank the lady who talked about Irina, because when I was ambassador of Burkina at UNESCO, I was in the team who supported the candidature of Irina at UNESCO. And I will have Monday night at New York, a dinner with Irina. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to be with you today in the Temple of Knowledge, which such enthusiastic personalities convinced of the virtues of diplomacy, especially in the cultural dimension. The intervention of the panelists who preceded me have been very enriching. It's for me a great honor. And for my part, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to share with you some of my reflections from my personal experiences, which have largely been devoted to culture and diplomacy to a continental and bilateral level, and lately at multilateral and international level as permanent representative of La Francophonie at UN. My path started in a small village in an African savanna in Burkina country, whose history is not always well known to all. Let me linger a moment on it, not because of chauvinism, but to illustrate in many ways the theme that brings us here today. At the origin of the Mossi Empire, where Burkina Faso takes a part of its roots, there is a beautiful love story, a story of a beautiful and brave princess, an Amazon named Nyenenga, who fell in love with an intrepid hunter despite the objection of her father. From their union, a son baptized Ouagadougou, male us in memory of the stallion at the bed of their romance was born. The story as it was told to us around bonfire and during fresh night in Africa savannah is full of courage, sense of sacrifice, and triumph of love, and it completes with all beautiful love stories that you can find in Hollywood, Bollywood, and Nollywood movies. The story contains many lessons, and it has the power to amaze young people from all over the world, being them African, Asians, American, or Europeans. Of course, this would have also been the case if the story was told in them through cinema. I have seen my first movie at the age of 7 years in the Charlie Chaplin starring and Laurel and Hardy. It was a cultural shock which eventually would have quickly defined my vocation, as cinema has always been a magic attraction for all kids. These movies, which fascinated me, were projected in a Catholic mission where all kids used together without distinction, neither of race, religion, and we are really happy to be together. This memory of my childhood has accompanied me throughout my life, and I was persuaded that images is really the solution of many things. Indeed, it's good to dream. I am black, and even in good to dream in black and white movies coming from different places, we are also know that it is important to have our own project, African behind and front of camera. This question raised above found this answer in the UNESCO action in 1976 when they created a pilot school of cinema in Ouagadougou, which I joined quickly. I think that the creation of this school of cinema reinforced the Ouagadougou Pan-African Film Fest, which held in 1969. The Pan-African Film Fest of Cinema that celebrated its 44th birth anniversary is really an example of cultural diplomacy place. When I took the change to the direction of this festival in the mid-80s, it was soon convinced that the survival of that festival was dependent on the strong promotion campaign to raise it as a festival of this time, as an essential vehicle of cultural diplomacy. It in fact needed to be reinforced its continental dimension and this attractiveness, and it is because of that I came to Leipzig, Berlin Film Festival, Oberhausen, and other places in Europe, America, and also Russia and Asia. I think that to consolidate the influence of African cinema all over the world, we have really to be present at any place in the world. It's because of that, step by step, we discover the importance of cultural diplomacy, because everywhere we used to go, people need to know about Africa. And a lot of people don't know that Africa is so big, so that I flew from Berlin to Ouagadougou. It takes 5 hours. But when I want to take a plane from Ouagadougou to Pretoria, it takes 7 hours. So it's really important for this part of the world to show what we can do and what we can deal with all the world in the 60s. And to take an example, you know, the Pan-African Fest cultural event who was in 1966 in Dakar, Festival des Arts Nègres, was the first step showing Africans to understand that culture and origin can be really a strong way to show who we are. And because of that understanding, we create Ouagadougou Pan-African Film Fest in 1669. I went to study filmmaking, mass communication, and when I turned back to Burkina, I worked to make this festival more recognized. And we fight really to explain what a festival can be for Africans. It's because of that, step by step, I spent 14 years as general manager of this festival, and I push it, and I moved from the festival in 1997. And at that time, I get one important post in Paris as ambassador of Burkina, because at that time, our government thinks that you really sell the festival so well. So perhaps you can do the same thing for a little poor country like Burkina, who have a very strong culture. And when I start to be diplomat in Paris, I came for 1 year, and I spent 11 years. I become the dean of African ambassadors, and I know where I have this powerful. It was culture. At anywhere and any time, when I want to speak to Burkina, I speak to Africa. The culture and the possibility for us to be really a part of the world with our culture. So I really want to thank everybody. As you know, my English is very poor. And if I have to read it, it will be boring for you. And don't forget one thing, you know, my one African lady, my great mother, said, whenever you speak, have pity of those who listen to you. It's because of that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's only because of that you will see my speech in the site of ICD. I really want to thank everybody and say that I speak 5 languages, 3 languages of West Africa. English a little bit, Spanish, and I am a crack in French. So you can understand what I say. Thank you again. And
thank you very much indeed, Mr. Savadogo. Even though I don't think that your English is weak, but if you think so, but I do think that your ideas are so powerful. And thank you very much for bringing the African perspective to the cultural diplomacy. Let's take one question or two from the audience.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you very much for being here and for promoting African culture. It's close to my heart. I'm South African. I'm the director for a human rights program here at the ICD, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you. My question is referring back to your comment about women and the role of women in politics, and specifically in the African continent. How do you feel women can become more involved in peace mediation, given the current situation in the Congo and Sudan and the violence that is ongoing in our continent? And how do you think that women like myself, I'm politically active in South Africa, have more of a chance of being involved in this dialogue and this process? Thank you very much.
Okay. You know, 20 of December at New York, at my office, I will have press conference on the abolition on the resolution about MGF. You know MGF, mutilation génitale féminine. Women, first ladies, take this fight at UN, and it takes more than 20 years. But the next coming December, we will have a vote at UN to let everybody know that MGF is not good for anybody. It is not a reason of religion, cultural, but only a creation of human being. So I think that it is really interesting, and during those days, we show how women can take an objective and fight for their rights. And we have also with UN Women, with Madame Bachelet, a program to try to make gender and employment of women be a real solution to rise development. So I think that it is really interesting to understand that we have a role to play and we respect this kind of situation. Without women, no development in the planet. I don't.
Yes, my name is Stina Dale and I'm from Norway and I'm an MA student here. I would just like to give a comment. Thank you very much for your very inspiring speech. At least I find it very refreshing every time somebody really says something positive about Africa and also have a solution-minded attitude rather than look at all the issues and all the problems. So thank you very much.
Merci. What do you think about the only one lady from my continent who want to talk?
She's
Yes.
because we are running.
Okay.
But please, could you make it short?
Thank you very much. I would like to ask for your perspective that you worked in 60s and mobilizing the African culture and producing it or for the others. And now, unfortunately, you become a politician and get away from the culture. How do you think this era of globalization, what about the African culture, or how can we promote our culture and let the other know about Africa, which is very rich of the culture and tradition, which is very positive in African life? Thank you.
You know, you make a comment, and I think it is interesting. Let me tell you one thing. You European, you have watch, and you don't have time.
I'm Moroccan, African. I'm African.
We African, we don't have watch, but we have time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you here with us. Thank you.